Celtics?
I think it'd be a bigger challenge who would it be a bigger challenge for the Nets for? For me, if they played the Boston Celtics, I think that's more difficult for Brooklyn. That's who they're going to play because they're going to win tonight. Okay. They're going to win tonight. They're going to beat Cleveland at home, and then they're going to get the Boston Celtics. This is the team that's been the best defensive team in the league for 2 months. They can come up with something against Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, I think, that's going to force other guys to have to do something. And look, they're special talents. They're flamethrowers. You can't put anything against them. And the most important thing about those two players is they love this environment. They have proven that they can run to the light. They are not going to shrink on this stage. So there's no doubt they're capable of being good enough offensively to overcome their defensive issues. But I do think with what Boston is doing right now, with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown playing better together than they have at any point since they have been teammates, they seem to have finally figured out how to complement each other to go with a top-shelf defensive team coming into it. I think that's more of a challenge for Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving than it would be even against the Heat, because I think the Heat, there's something with them that just didn't jive with me at the end of the year. I just didn't see a team, to me, that was clicking. I thought when they added the guys, they added Kyle Lowry, PJ Tucker, I thought this could be the best defensive team in the NBA night in, night out. And sometimes they are. Problem is, they also go through stretches where they have issues putting the ball in the basket. And if you go into that situation against the Brooklyn Nets, I think that could be a problem for the Miami Heat. So I think Brooklyn wins tonight. They get the Celtics, and I think the Boston Celtics ultimately are going to win that series.
The Boston Celtics, to me, are very, very similar to the Brooklyn Nets in this one way. Either of them could come out of the East. Either of them could be home in the first round. And that's how it's going to end up being, basically. That's what we're talking about here. And I happen to know on good authority, don't worry about how I know. You have some people within the Boston Celtics organization that they don't like the fact that they're going to end up playing the Brooklyn Nets. They wish they would have lost so they'd have had somebody else. But give Udoka credit. Remember, he's a first-time coach. And I said this to somebody the other day. If you're an experienced coach and you play a numbers game or you play a competitive game in terms of this opponent would be better suited for us than the other opponent, fine. But when you are a first-year head coach, the most important thing to do is establish culture. And Udoka is saying, we don't give a damn who we going up against. We gonna be ready. This is what it's about. We either ready for the big dance or we not. We ain't bound to nobody and we ain't looking for shortcuts and we're not looking for any way out. And I respect the hell out of that because I think that's the kind of thing that will propel Boston. Now, I would be far more confident in the Boston Celtics if Robin Williams was healthy, all right? But he's not. And so we don't know what his status is. It doesn't look good. I don't know what to say about that. If he's in the lineup, I got more confidence in Boston. With him out of the lineup, I can still see Brooklyn finding a way to pull out this series. With all of that being said, I do believe Boston is the bigger challenge to the Brooklyn Nets. And it's because of how they play defense collectively. Now, some people say Miami, and I get Miami, they got a lot of weapons. The difference between Miami and Boston, I view Boston as having two closers. I see Miami having a bunch of dudes who can close, but no definitive closer. And we know Brooklyn's got two closers. And so when I look at it from that perspective, and then I take into account how tenacious Boston's defense has been, I give Boston a better shot against Brooklyn than Miami in a first-round series. Maybe I'd feel differently in the second round of a conference finals, but for a first-round playoff series, I think Boston would be a bigger threat.
I think we all in somewhat of agreement there. I look at Boston as very similar to the Nets. They mirror each other. They got two closers, like you said, Stephen A. The one thing that Boston has is a relentless defense that is not in Brooklyn. Brooklyn doesn't have Ben Simmons, which was supposed to be the defensive stopper for them. I think that is in terms of the Achilles heel, that will be the Achilles heel. Then you switch to Miami, you talk about Miami's defense been up and down, not as well as we thought they will have been throughout the course of the season, but they can't score nearly as well as the Nets or the Celtics for that matter. So in the end, the biggest challenger certainly would be Boston. Tatum is reckless right now, and he's just outstanding, just doing everything you thought he was capable of doing when he got drafted from Duke. But then on the other side, Brown is certainly living up to his end of the bargain, because we certainly thought at the beginning of the season that those two wouldn't be able to coexist long term, but they got it together, and that's why they probably are going to see the Nets.
Yeah, and the Nets beat the Heat in March with KD and Kyrie in the lineup, and they lost to the Celtics in March with KD and Kyrie in the lineup. Let's look ahead, Stephen A. Tons of storylines heading into the postseason. So who has the most at stake in these playoffs?
What you mean? I mean, I need specific. You talk about a team or a player?
Go either.
James Harden. I don't think there's any question about it. When you consider the fact that he's looking to get a $200 million contract within the next year or so, that's one element. Him playing in Philly is one element, because as Tim Legler fully knows, and he knows I fully know, this ain't Houston. This ain't Oklahoma City. You show up in Philadelphia and you don't respond to the challenge that is presented to you, it's going to be very, very difficult for James Harden. Number 3, you got to validate everything that Daryl Morey's done. And I want to put this on blast. Daryl Morey, to me, has put his career on the line. When you sit up there and you trade Simmons, Seth Curry, Drummond, 2 first-round picks, and rumors are already swirling. And by the way, I don't understand why, because I don't understand this love affair with Mike D'Antoni. I just don't. He can coach, don't get me wrong. He's offensively brilliant. As Jamie Foxx joked, take the D out of D'Antoni. You understand what I'm saying? After all this time, he hasn't figured out you have to play defense at some time. Take the D out of D'Antoni. He don't think about it. He don't talk about it. He don't care about it, okay? You know what I mean? He's the one, as far as I'm concerned, that invented defensive coordinators in the sport of basketball, because you knew you needed one when he coached you, because he wasn't thinking about it, okay? I don't understand how this guy is the guy that's in line for Doc Rivers' job in Philadelphia, okay? But he is. And if James Harden doesn't get it done, okay, they going to fire Doc Rivers, all right? They're going to bring in Mike D'Antoni, all right? And Daryl Morey is going to be on a hot seat, because James Harden still would not have gotten it done. And everybody going to look at Daryl Morey and say, what I said from day one. What the hell you give up all of that for James Harden? Now, I understand Ben Simmons ain't been playing, and don't get me started with that. I mean, the back injury, I mean, what the hell he was doing, drive down the turnpike. Like I said, yesterday, hit a pothole. You understand what I'm saying? Hit back.
They got a lot of them in Philly. You know that.
There's a lot of them.
They've been working on those roads for a long time.
I guess so. Or messed his hips up in some other way, and it's affected his back. I don't know what the hell's going on with him. But eventually, we surmise he will be back. In the end, you, Daryl Morey, you did all of this for James Harden. James Harden has to come through, because his money is on the line and jobs are on the line. And it's got James Harden's name written all over it.
I'm going to play semantics with your question, because I think the way you worded the question.
Oh, boy, here we go.
Who's got the most at stake?
Yeah.
I think your answer is who's got the most pressure on them. There is no question it's James Harden. There's not a close second.
Okay.
It's going to fall in his lap. Okay? Most at stake, though, I can go one of 2 ways. I can go with somebody you mentioned, Daryl Morey, who clearly has a lot at stake if this fails, especially if they lose in the first round.
That's right.
And I think Doc Rivers has a lot at stake, too, because if James Harden continues to play the way he's playing, you're going to have to figure out a way to help coach them through that series with Toronto. Because if he struggles right now, the way I see it, they're going to lose that series if he continues to play the way he has last week. Right. But I got an even better answer. Most at stake, to me, clearly, is Chris Paul. He's running out of time. He's running out of time, Stephen A. And if he doesn't win it this year with a team that is clearly head and shoulders the best team in the NBA on both ends of the floor, they are a prohibitive favorite to win a title. If you don't win it this year, what happens next year? Denver gets their guys back. The Clippers get Kawhi back. Golden State is whole going into the year with a healthy Klay Thompson and guys like Kuminga getting better. You add a Wiseman. The West is just going to get tougher. This is the year for Chris Paul to add that championship title to his resume. Now, I don't have any doubt he'll play great. But if he ends up with the ball in a make-or-miss moment, in a defining moment in a series, in the finals, then he's going to get blamed for that. The pressure will shift to him. And that's why he has the most at stake going in, because this is his year more than any other, clearly, to end up with a title that we all think he deserves based on his career. If he doesn't get it this year, I don't know if it's going to happen.
Yeah, Legs, I got to piggyback with you on that one because when I look at the situation in Philadelphia, James Harden is going to get his money no matter what because they gave up too much to get him. No matter who the coach is going to be, that is going to be the case. They're going to cash it in on him. And then when you look at Doc Rivers' situation, if Doc Rivers is run out of Philadelphia, rumors has that he could be landed back in Los Angeles coaching the Lakers. So that is not that big of a deal. His career is going to go on, both of those guys. But Chris Paul, at 37, 38 years old, the opportunity of a lifetime, having the best team potentially in the NBA. The West is somewhat down right now. And we know the history of Chris Paul in the playoffs. We've been pulling for him for years. Last year, I'm not even a Phoenix fan, but I was pulling for him to beat the Milwaukee Bucks. But